Hi, everybody. Good morning and happy Tuesday. Welcome to our Navigating Change Year One Forum. My name is Yvonne Epps, and I'm a program manager for the Social Policy Institute at San Diego State University. And before we get started, we just wanted to let you know that we do have an interpreter here with us today, Miss Brenda Temez. And she's going to give some instructions as to how to access the interpretation room. We will be doing a panel later where one of our participants is Spanish speaking. So in order to hear her, you'll need to be in that room to hear the participants' responses. So Brenda, if you will.
Thank you, Brenda. Just a reminder for anyone who hasn't found it, for many of us, the control that Brenda is referencing is at the bottom of the screen. You must click on More first, and then you will see the globe icon. Is everyone able to do that? Are there any questions? Feel free to come off mute if you need the instructions repeated.
Okay, great. Well, today we're gathered to reflect on the work that Navigating Change has completed over this past year, identify opportunities for alignment with all of you, our partners, and take steps toward improving support for transition-aged youth with an intellectual or developmental disability and their families. So in a few moments, we will hear opening remarks from our partners. I will then provide a brief overview of the Navigating Change program, and then my team will share lessons that they learned in this work with youth and families. And we also have a panel of program participants who will share their experiences. And afterwards, we'll invite you all into a conversation with each other to learn from other programs, share your experiences, and explore ways to strengthen support for transition-aged youth and their families. So I will pass to Lori, who will introduce our opening speakers and as well as herself.
Thank you, Yvonne. I am delighted to be here today and to welcome all of you. And I'm particularly excited to be able to lift up our very close partnership with San Diego Regional Center and also with the California Department of Developmental Services. I'm the director of the Social Policy Institute here at San Diego State University. And you see our mission and vision there on the screen. I believe that this mission and vision is ideally suited to the work that we're doing through Navigating Change, which of course is to help transition age youth who are moving through high school, making one of the biggest transitions of their life from children's services into adult programs. They will move to different places. That navigating process can be challenging, but it's one that we are looking to have well supported. One of the things that I've come to learn as part of this program is that oftentimes the youth that we work with and even their families have very low expectations of what's possible, what can be achieved in a life plan, what kind of transition is possible and happening. And so at the Social Policy Institute, we're all about infusing hope and being a catalyst of those kind of positive changes. So with that, I'd like to invite our first partner, Mark Klaus, who is the executive director of the San Diego Regional Center. Mark.
Thank you, Lori. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge a couple of our team members, Kate Kinnamont, who is with us today. Kate is our associate executive director, and Brenda Ballo Vasquez, who is also a member of our team, who've have been and continue to be instrumental to this partnership. Just a little bit about San Diego Regional Center. San Diego Regional Center is one of 21 regional centers in the state of California. We are the second largest of the 21 regional centers, supporting just shy of 48,000 individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities in San Diego and Imperial County. So our catchment area is a two-county catchment area, supporting those individuals with over 1,000 full-time professional staff members. Um, and I think one of the things that we're proud of that challenges us in our community is our growth. Looking at the growth of individuals that we're supporting over the last several years has been in excess of 3,000 every year. So, 3, 4 years ago, we were supporting 34,000 people. Now we're close to 48,000. And to me, it's because of these partnerships. It's a partnership with San Diego State and many of our community partners. Um, I have a saying, you don't know what you don't know, but you also don't know who you know if you don't know them. So the important part is us working with community partners. San Diego State, Lori, it's been great working with you and your team on this. To me, it's about partnership. I've told my staff I've been in this position about 4 years. And what I heard from our community and what I heard from board members is that we were the best kept secret in town. And getting our community together to expand the reach, expand, services, and really meet people, not just where they are, but when they're there. And this partnership allows us to do that. So to me, that's the important part of this. You know, I hear from my staff, there's a lot of Mark-isms, if you will, and one of those is really the partnership component. If we're not working together, we're typically working against each other. And the root of all fear is change. It's change transitioning into out of high school into life, and having setting your goals, not somebody else's goals, but your goals. And this partnership really has been outstanding, something that we're very proud of to play a small part in. But again, on behalf of San Diego Regional Center, I just want to say thank you to everybody on this meeting today on the call. And please know that we're always here to do more and hopefully do better. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate your gracious remarks, and keep those Markisms coming. We love them, and you are certainly the embodiment of living those within the partnership. So we are truly grateful for that. And just so everyone knows of the numbers that Mark cited to you that the San Diego Regional Center is serving, just over 3,000 of the individuals being served are transition age youth. And through this navigating change and through what DDS has made possible, we are able to serve just over half of them. And you'll hear more of that as we continue through the presentation this morning. So with that, I'd like to thank and introduce our partner at the California Department of Developmental Services, Kate Tao, who is the Associate Governmental Program Analyst. Kate.
Thank you, Lori. Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with all of you. Like Lori introduced, my name is Kate Tao. I am a grant manager with the Access and Equity Division at the Department of Developmental Services, or DDS. To share a little bit about DDS, the department serves more than 450,000 Californians who have an intellectual and or developmental disability, or for short, IDD. Somewhat to what Mark has mentioned already, DDS contracts with 21 private nonprofit regional centers throughout the state to provide service coordination and contract with service providers to help connect individuals with IDD to services and supports that meets their needs. In my role as a grant manager, I have the opportunity to work alongside some regional centers and community-based organizations through our Service Access and Equity Grant Program, or for short, SAE. The grant program was created in 2016 through Assembly Bill X-21. And at that time, it was originally known as the Disparity Funds Program, but now it is known as the Service Access and Equity Grant Program. And through that program, about $11 million is provided each year to regional centers and community-based organizations to support strategies focusing on reducing disparities and increasing equity in services for individuals with IDD and their families. And with that, one of those partners is San Diego State University, their research foundation, who we are pleased to be in partnership with on their project, the Navigating Change. It's, again, really great to be here today as we continue on the discussion and listen more and learn more about the work and impact of their project.
Thank you so much, Kate. This is our first time at Social Policy Institute within the university of working directly with DDS, and we so appreciate your warm welcome and helping us to navigate as a partner with you. So thank you for that. And with that, I'm happy to turn this back to Yvonne.
Thanks, Lori. So I'm going to go over our program a little bit for anyone who might not be too familiar with Navigating Change and talk a little bit about some of our cohorts that we launched last year. So as mentioned, Navigating Change is a Service Access and Equity Grant awardee. Our grant began January 1st, 2025 and goes until December 31st, 2026. And our focus for our project is on transition-aged youth. So those between 16 and 22 who have an intellectual or developmental disability. And the reason why we are focusing on this specific age range is that when we were developing the grant application in partnership with the San Diego Regional Center, it was identified that there was a huge need for this specific population in terms of increasing access to supports and services for specifically those who were non-white, non-English speaking. We had found in their numbers that those populations were accessing supports and services at a lower rate. And they were hearing from the families that they were just lots of confusion around the transition process. That as families and youth are transitioning from children's services to adult services, that there was a lot of just concern and worry about what's next and what their child was going to do or what the youth was going to do once that transition process happened. So we developed and designed this program to help alleviate some of those concerns, to help increase access to programs and services across the county in San Diego, and to help families feel a little bit more confident and comfortable with that transition process. And so part of our program involves connecting families and youth to navigators who have gone through this process or are going through the process themselves of figuring out a transition. So on the next slide, we highlight 4 of our specific core components of our program. And our program is only 3 months long, so it's not very long, but it's fairly impactful in terms of the support that youth and families are receiving from Navigating Change. So I'll go over each of these 4 core components in the following slides. To begin our program, we have what we call a World Cafe. We do this at the very beginning of Navigating Change, and we also do it at the very end. And it's a way to bring together San Diego Regional Center youth and their families to connect, share experiences, learn from each other, and also learn about our program. And so during these events, we divide up the families and the youth, and we have the families go into a conversation and the youth go into a conversation. And we're asking them what's currently working well with their time in regional center and with the school systems. We ask them to share about their barriers and challenges, and we also are wanting to know what are their hopes and dreams for themselves, for their youth, for their families. And so it's really a great opportunity for our families to begin building those relationships and to begin identifying and realizing that there are others in the community who have similar experiences. We've had many families who've walked away from our World Cafes feeling more connected and feeling a little less isolated as a result of having connected with others with similar lived experiences. So after our World Cafes, that's where we begin the pairing process of the families who are in our program with our navigators. And we have two types of navigators within our program. We have a family transition specialist and a youth mentor. Most of our navigators do have lived experience. So that means they are either a San Diego Regional client themselves, or they are a parent of a child who has uh, intellectual or developmental disability, or they're a loved one or relative who has who supports someone with the intellectual or developmental disability. Or there's someone who has experience of working and supporting and mentoring and advocacy and wanted to help and be a part of our program. So our family transition specialists really partner with the family unit as a whole, identifying the specific goals that the family has for themselves, but also for their youth, and helping support them towards those goals. So this looks like identifying services, resource navigation, support with advocacy. They also serve as a liaison between the family and the San Diego Regional Center. And then we have our youth mentors who provide the one-on-one support for our youth who are in our program. And so these are for youth who are interested in wanting to explore or go deeper into some of their goals of education, employment, social skills, whatever it might be. Our youth navigators provide that support and help and direction and guidance that they might not have otherwise received. Then we have the families, if they are interested, joining Home of Guiding Hands Life Planning course. So the great part about our program is that we really try to center partnerships with other community partners. And so one of our community partners is Home of Guiding Hands, and we encourage families to join in their life planning course. And so their life planning course is a 6-session course, and the sessions are on the screen that you can see here. They meet every other week for 2.5 hours, so there's lots of content and lots of information, but it's a great opportunity to help families get a little piece of some of that anxiety or unsureness that they don't know where to start. It's a great starting place for many families where they can begin looking and exploring a lot of the questions that they have within this program. So this program covers lots of areas, and by the time they finish this program, they will have started their own transition plan. They might not finish it because it's a big process to finish a transition plan, but they'll have at least started and began that process of thinking about and working towards developing that transition plan. In addition to all these things, we also offer and have started creating a online learning management system. So this is our library of resources and trainings for families that are wanting to go deeper and learn a little bit more about some topics that they're interested in learning about. So we are constantly adding to our library of learning. And right now we have modules on self-determination. We have modules on self-care. We have modules specifically targeted for youth who are wanting to get into employment. So about putting your resume together, interviewing practices and skills, social skills, and things of that nature. And then one of the core areas that many of our families have really enjoyed within our program are our peer support groups. And so these peer support groups occur for both youth and families. And thus far, we've been doing weekly peer support groups for those who are within our program. And these peer support groups are opportunities for our program participants to come together to reconnect, just like they did at the World Cafe, but in a virtual space, and to talk about areas that they're interested in talking about. So peer support groups are really geared towards what the needs of the families are in that moment. So this looks like talking about challenges, providing advice and support, but also we bring in guest speakers from across the county. So we're always looking for partners to come and share about their programs and services that families would be interested in learning more about or joining. And it's very helpful for families to learn what's out there. Uh, and again, our navigators support with resource navigation, emotional support. And then at the very end of our program, at the very end of 3 months, that's when we begin talking about program transition. So we don't want to just up and leave families. We want to make sure that they have continued support after the fact. So we do two things. We do a referral if the families are interested to Exceptional Family Resource Center so that they can continue to receive that support with resource navigation. And then we also develop our own transition plan with them, covering the 7 core areas of transition that the families are wanting to, are still needing help and support with and have questions about. So education, housing, legal conservatorship, any of those areas that families are wanting to go deeper into. We provide those transition plans to the family service coordinator so that the service coordinator can continue to work with the families and make sure that they're getting those needs addressed. And all of our components within our programs are optional. So we don't mandate or require families to participate in everything that we have going on because we know we have a lot. So if families just want the navigator support or if they just want the peer group support, that's a-okay. We're here to support them in whatever capacity that they have because we know that families have a lot on their plate. So we try to make our program very flexible to their needs. So this slide here just highlights some program evaluation data that we gathered from our cohorts last year. So even though we started the Service Access and Equity Grant in January of last year, our cohorts did not launch until August of 2025. So we were able to launch 2 cohorts in August, one English and one Spanish speaking. And in those 2 cohorts, we were able to connect with over 50 youth, parents, and family members through all of our programming. So we had hosted 5 in-person World Cafes. We had over 20 peer support group meetings, and our navigators hosted over 100 one-on-one meetings with their regional center youth and families. And most of the conversations our navigators were having were around social skills, independent living, mental health, and employment services. Almost 90% of our families felt confident about their next steps. 98% felt that their navigator was helpful in supporting their needs and felt that the information and support that they received was clear and helpful. And 100% of our families felt heard and respected. So in 2026, we have already launched 2 cohorts, one in English in East County and one in Spanish in Imperial County. And we are planning to launch a 3rd Spanish cohort later this month in East County. And as 26 continues to unravel, we are continuing to look to launch multiple cohorts across the calendar year and are even looking to expand our support to Arabic speaking families. So there's lots on the horizon for our program, and we're looking forward to continuing to improve our programming and support for the families in our communities. So that's a little bit about our program and some of the impact that we've had. And I'm going to pass to Heather and Jacob, who are going to talk about one of the most impactful components of our program, which is our peer support work.
Thank you, Yvonne. Um, it is so wonderful to see everybody here today. It's exciting to see names and organization names of people that we've already been working with and people that we've been talking to about forming partnerships. So thank you, everybody, for being here today. My name is Heather Robert. I have served in a couple different roles in navigating change. I have worked behind the scenes on some of the program and training development. Um, I am one of the project leads for the Imperial County cohort that we just launched a few weeks ago, which was very exciting. And I have served as a family navigator for the English speaking families. As you can see in the picture, that's me with my sister. My sister was born with profound IDD. I am part-time caregiver and co-conservator for her. So I'm very passionate about the work and the mission of navigating change, and it has been quite an honor to be part of this program.
Thank you, Heather. And hello, everyone. My name is Jacob. I'm a project manager at the Social Policy Institute. And also super excited to share with you some of the highlights from our peer support work, and hopefully be able to provide some concrete tools for you all as takeaways today. And just a little about me briefly as well. I have a public health background, and a lot of my work at SPI really involves supporting wellness at a community level, and kind of focusing on quality and access to care. So really making sure that county and community agencies are able to work together as best as possible to support children and families. And then specifically with navigating change, I work with our amazing team of navigators as a supervisor for the San Diego cohorts, and also support the team with setting up peer support sessions and with our youth specifically. And so now I'll jump right into our overview on the next slide. And so I'll start us off with just an introduction to peer support and kind of how we've leveraged it to support families in navigating change. So we know peer support plays a really significant role, especially for the IDD community, in getting families and youth connected to resources. And this is really particularly relevant during the transition period from youth services into adult services. And specifically using peer support groups, make sure that in our program we're treating families not just as clients who are receiving services, but also as individuals with their own knowledge and lived experience who are able to support one another through challenges on their own. And so, kind of by centering peer support, we're really looking to incorporate some of the leading research that we've seen on peer support to build up those four components you see on the left hand of the slide that look like Lego blocks. So with that, we know peer support builds capacity for so many different amazing things, including first, family knowledge of resources that they might not have been aware of before. And it also builds bridges of connection directly to services through peer referrals. And then it builds a sense of community and belonging among peers by creating those open spaces for both families and youth to learn together and really particularly without fear of judgment. And then finally, it builds resilience so families can take advantage of their strengths, which we'll touch on a little bit later. And then you can see our overview on the right-hand side there. So in the next few slides, Heather and I are going to walk through the peer support groups we've built in navigating change and how we structure them to really encourage families to engage as meaningfully as they can in the project. So we'll share highlights from both the youth and family groups and concrete examples that we've used to make our group successful, and then end finally on the impact that we see these connections having on the families and youth. And all the insights that we touch on will be available in our Navigating Change report that's going to be shared with you all later this month. And overall, I'll just add that we're very excited and motivated by the lessons we've learned so far, and some of that initial alignment we've achieved between families and their services. So just looking forward to continuing to build on this knowledge. And then I'll turn it over to Heather to jump into the family group highlights.
Thanks, Jacob. So in my role as family navigator, I had the joy of co-facilitating our English family peer support groups. Um, and from the get-go, we tried to make sure that we were creating a safe space. We sort of came to mutual agreements as to, group norms, and agreeing to be non-judgmental and allowing space for all of the families, whether they were parents or siblings, or otherwise a familial connection, to talk about um, the the joys of their world as well as the challenges. Um, Caregiving can be a love of labor, so there is lots of love and lots of hard work. It was a very flexible group. We met every week, and people could pop in when they had the time or the availability, whether they were, one woman would she'd be out hiking and she'd be on her phone. Sometimes people, they might have their youth with them because they were, a lot of times you don't get a break from the caregiving. So however they were able to participate, they were encouraged to join. Some of the strengths that we found in these groups was, so I already mentioned the space to be vulnerable. Um, and the connection that combated isolation. A lot of times, as most of you know, for these families, they are isolated. They don't have a lot of community. So to be able to have a space where they could meet other people that had a similar life experience was a really powerful experience for them. Um, to be able to talk about the challenges or frustrations, and to have people say, oh, I've been there, I get it. Having that validation and feeling like you've been seen is very powerful. We noticed a lot of reciprocal encouragement and support. I know this was something that was particularly apparent in the Spanish speaking group, where the families would remind each other, to not just address the challenges that they were having, but to also, they would point out in each other the strengths that they have, the problem solving they have, their flexibility, and sort of helped them sort of broaden uh, the perspective that sometimes they had on their life, that they had a lot of good things going for them as well. And of course, the sharing of resources and strategies with one another. Um, I think it was Mark that said earlier, we don't, and many of the family said, we don't know what we don't know. So to be able to connect with other families that had had some experience with a program or with a service or with a provider, and to be able to connect with each other was really amazing to share. We often had families, I remember in one of the first groups I facilitated, when mom was really struggling, trying to understand how to get set up with like IHS and SSI. And this other mom said, oh, I totally know how to do that. Give me your number. We can talk offline. So it was this virtual space, and then they were taking it out into these one on one relationships. So that was spectacular. As far as the opportunities, we we intentionally provided open space during the peer support group for just sort of open sharing, and that allowed for a lot of emotional support, and building each other up. And then we would also invite different community partners to come and give educational presentations about their services. So we had people come about to speak about employment opportunities, vocational development, figuring out how to set up a CalAble account, how to we had someone come and talk about self-determination. So we had, educational presentations and the emotional support. And so the opportunity was to find a way to make sure that we were providing a balance of both of those so that we were meeting the needs of everyone who was coming to this peer support. Um, and now Jacob is going to talk about the highlights of the youth support groups.
Thank you, Heather. So as you mentioned, I'll cover strengths and opportunities, but for our youth group specifically, which met separately from the family group. So with this group, kind of an overall insight that we found was that all the youth really had different preferences for how to engage with the group, and also with their navigators and their individual mentors. So this kind of affected how we intentionally structured the group to discuss topics that were raised in discussions with youth on the back end, and versus the family group, where a lot of times topics come up in meetings, in the direct peer support meetings themselves. And so, one example from this that we saw is that multiple youth in one-on-one meetings were sharing that they're interested in learning about time management and things like independence skills. So we were able to take those topics and integrate them into the broader schedule for all the youth to learn about together. And this kind of highlights that first strength of the youth group, which is really just that flexibility is key. And this is really in a multitude of different aspects. So, like I mentioned, the discussion topics, the way we engage with youth during the peer support groups. So, things like allowing youth to interact in their preferred communication style, such as through the chat or with emojis or just in breakout sessions. And then at the same time, this kind of just included acknowledging that some youth might not want to join a group with multiple people at once and kind of prefer that more one-on-one or a smaller space for discussion. And this was something that our mentors were able to set up with youth that were interested and had specific hobbies that were aligned. So an example was arts and crafting that a couple of our youth were interested in. And really just showed how even if they're not wanting to get engaged with the full group, they were able to feel heard and have their needs met, even if they weren't ready for that full commitment with the group, and still make a connection. And then another strength is to first learn where youth are at in their transition process, because it is often likely that they're going to be at different points than each other. So really being able to incorporate discussion topics that help them with skills they'll use right away. So like I mentioned, stress management and coping skills. And then additionally topics that they'll use in the future potentially. So employment opportunities or finance management. So we really tried to look at providing kind of that balance of supports and avoid only focusing on one area of growth. And some youth might not be interested in those areas or those topics at all. And then finally, an opportunity for growth that we see and will be incorporating in future groups is to work on creating multiple doors for youth to enter into the space and just allow them to more meaningfully participate. And so this is really acknowledging that meeting new people can be daunting, especially in a virtual space. And sometimes that's a barrier to engaging with the group. So we're constantly kind of looking for ways to more actively engage youth and open those doors to help them feel comfortable in engaging in their preferred way. And like I mentioned, not all the youth may want to join that official peer support group, but and prefer to, engage through text. So really just about encouraging the youth in engaging in their preferred way, setting up those smaller meetings and incorporating engagement methods that work for each individual. And so on the next slide, we'll kind of wrap up these highlights with topics that we feel both the youth and family groups benefited from, and kind of framing it through tools for engagement that we really found to be successful. So first there, which Heather and I have both touched on a bit in both the groups, is providing layers of flexibility in order to be able to support with that adaptable problem solving that works well in these groups. So kind of just taking those cues from participants and seeing how they're most comfortable participating, speaking, using the chat, their videos on or off, really just modifying actions over the course of the group, really intentionally using those tools for engagement and seeing what each group prefers, because a lot of times it can shift from group to group and cohort to cohort. And then next is communicating and providing reminders, which is sounds simple, but is always very important and super helpful. Just really acknowledging these families are busy and they're not juggling just their participants' schedule, but also their own health and needs and responsibilities. And so something we really found helpful was sending those regular reminders and links to access materials after groups and having that sort of hub for follow-up to make it possible for everyone to get supports. And then also related to families being busy is providing discussion topics ahead of time for families and youth so they can decide whether they would like to attend a session that week. And this really just allowed us to provide families with the option to prioritize their time. And if they miss a session, having that recording available to provide afterwards is always very helpful. And with that goes kind of the balancing of information. So providing concrete information that families can use, but also more of that open discussion that Heather mentioned was so beneficial for the family group, and just allowing families and youth to self-select what they're interested in based on their needs. And then lastly, and sometimes seen as the most important, is to really model that focus on strength and resilience. So helping families make the shift from negative self-thought to more positive and resiliency-focused thinking. And this doesn't mean ignoring the negative or kind of brushing it off, because it's definitely real and valid challenges that families are dealing with, but more so propping up their own power and the strengths that they have that are unique to their family unit, which can even just be acknowledging it and encouraging them through difficult times to be kind of that antidote to deficient mindsets. All right, and now I'll turn it over to Heather to wrap this section up.
Thanks, Jacob. Um, so the magic of peer support is the power of connection. It's the foundation of why peer support is so effective. It builds meaningful connections. Um, it can be, especially when these families and youth are facing the stressors and isolation of everyday life, and simply finding the time while trying to understand the shifting services and navigating complex care and this transition from, our sort of organized youth services to the fragmented system of adult services. There's a lot going on. So having the space is very important. Sharing space with others that have our life experience, who understand what it's like to live a life with IDD or to care for someone living their life that way. It accelerates the ability to connect. And this connection builds trust, it builds camaraderie, and that provides tremendous opportunities to learn from others in the form of shared resources. It could be specific programs, it could be strategies, it could be solutions to specific problems, or connections to people who can help make things happen. When we see other people who have successfully worked through challenges and barriers that are similar to our own, it can instill hope in us. And it can sort of give us hope and also remind us that we have the agency to advocate and take action on our own behalf and on behalf of the people that we love. And of course, the magic of mutual understanding and validation that happens in peer group, that profound experience of having others say, "We see you, we've also been there, we know the anger, the frustration, we know it's overwhelming, you are not alone." That mutual understanding creates a sense of belonging and supports emotional well-being. So thank you for listening to Jacob and I talk about the highlights, but now I'm very excited to introduce our panelists. So today we have two Navigating Change parents, as well as two of our navigators. We have Gisela, Aaron, Elvia, and David. And so we will start by having each of these individuals introduce themselves. And when you do, please let us know where you're from, what community you live in, and what brought you to navigating change. And um, Gisela, I think I'll let you go first.
¿Cómo están? Buenos días. Bueno, mi nombre es Gisela, soy mamá, Gisela Preciado. Soy mamá de Adrián Quispe, un jovencito con ADHD y autismo. Mm, Llegamos aquí al sistema educativo de Estados Unidos cuando él tenía 15 años. Mm, Voy a decirlo así, sinceramente, tuvimos la gran oportunidad de que él pudiera asistir aquí al colegio y al principio para él fue bastante difícil, pero con un buen sistema educativo que el que encontramos aquí, continuó estudiando. Mm, pero no llegó en la edad en el que él necesitaba poder tener los puntos para poder, o los grados para poder ingresar a lo que sería directamente para el college. Entonces, eh,
Ah,
cabe decir de que Adrián no quería asistir al sistema de Transition Center de BATSI. Entonces, su gran meta era ir directamente
mm,
a obtener su high school diploma. Entonces, todo eso ha sido cambios que él ha tenido y dentro de de todo ese proceso que obtuvo él, como lo acaban de mencionar, ha sido un momento de bastante frustración, de incertidumbre para nosotros como familia, y también para él, pero
mm,
para ello también tuvimos la ayuda de profesionales. En este caso también conocimos a Elvia durante todo ese proceso. Entonces, vimos qué oportunidades hay para poder ver qué oportunidades hay, qué alternativas hay para que él pueda seguir un cambio distinto para que él tenía anteriormente, ¿no? Entonces, Adrián ya consiguió su meta, que era obtener su high school diploma. En ese proceso conocimos, como mencioné, el programa Navegando por el Cambio. Nos ha ayudado tremendamente, voy a decirlo así. Personalmente nos ha ayudado como un soporte emocional, tanto a mí como a mi familia, a Adrián.
bueno,
Eh, lo que puedo acá obtener como resultado personal es de que nos ha ayudado también a poder pasar por las dificultades que uno se presenta como padres de un jovencito de 17 años a 18. No es lo mismo cuando ellos están pequeños y uno puede tomar decisiones
yeah.
fácilmente a cuando él ya es un adulto. Em,
Understood. Yes, gracias, Gisela. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And it's exciting to hear that you have gotten so much out of the program. So thank you for sharing that. Um, I am going to let our other parent participants introduce themselves. So, Erin, if you could tell us, you know, your name, where you're from, and what brought you to navigating change. And if you want to talk about one challenge that you have faced while while you have the floor, that would be great too.
Hi, my name is Erin. I'm from the San Marcos area. Uh, I'm the parent of now 18-year-old daughter who was diagnosed with epilepsy at 11, which got dramatically worse when she turned 14. And for us, I think I really thought things were going to stabilize. So maybe I started looking into this whole transition process way too late. So I didn't start looking out for resources or help or know what to do till she was about 17, about to turn 18. And then you're a little panicky at that point. Uh, I did learn about the Navigating Change program through the Epilepsy Foundation of San Diego, which has been a huge support for myself and for our family. And the program really offered me that guidance and that community that I so desperately needed and had been looking for. And it's been really helpful to hear from other families that are walking similar paths as mine. The challenges that I think we've faced as a family was that this for us was very unexpected. I didn't really anticipate how much support my daughter was still going to need when she turned 18. Um, so I reached out to the social worker at the Epilepsy Foundation, and she encouraged us to connect with the regional center. So we self-referred in February of 2025. And I'm excited to say that my daughter was accepted for services in November of 2025. And so now we're just waiting for a service provider placement. But that process was really long. And I think I was hopeful to have their guidance whenever we hit this 18. So without the Navigating Change program, I think we would have just been doing this without any support and all on our own, which was really terrifying. So the hurdles have been just that like legal shift in medical care when she turns 18. I want all those clearances to be involved in her care while still trying to respect her independence. She did not graduate from high school, so trying to find that purpose and continuing education for her has been a challenge for us. That Heather, who was our peer support, was so helpful and helped guiding us through. And also just with the supports and the activity and the communication and the community without triggering any of her mental health needs. And like a lot of families, we're trying to figure out what that financial stability will look like for her moving forward. And without you all, I think we would still be trying to find these solutions by ourselves, and we would have probably fallen through the cracks.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that, Erin. I liked that you brought up this idea of, you know, doing your part as the parent and guardian to help through the transition while also, honoring and supporting the independence and development of Sierra, because I think that that's something that a lot of parents of adolescents transitioning to adulthood around the world, we that's a challenge that all of us are navigating. But again, in this situation where you have someone that has IDD, it adds that extra layer. Um, so thank you very much for sharing that. While I have you, can I ask you really quick, because I know you said that part of it was that you came to the regional center a little bit later than some of the other families. Could you talk a little bit about your experience with the Home of Guiding Hands life planning?
Yeah. So that was so helpful. I don't think I really knew what to expect. And it's such an immense thing as a parent whenever you realize that you're going to be parenting on that level forever. And then what happens when you're not there anymore to take care of your child? And so we went from having, again, we were blessed not to have started life this way and knowing it was coming, right? It was unexpected and a little bit later for us, but we were so blindsided, and we were so grateful for the opportunity to still be able to take advantage of the Guiding Hands program, even though we weren't a regional center client and we were waiting for services. And I learned so many tangible things from that program. I have like this little like library on my computer of resources and the recordings. And we've been working as an entire family with extended family on what that life plan will look like. And then I have a meeting in March with Wendy to kind of sit down, and I have my list of questions for her. But it really helped make things really tangible, and it helped me to think of a lot of things that I didn't think to think about, or ask questions I didn't know to ask. It was really meaningful. It's overwhelming to go through a life planning process, like on so many levels. But the support, I couldn't have done it without you. We couldn't have done it without you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. And I just want to acknowledge the emotion, right? Because I think it gives me goosebumps because I know as a parent, we're about to hear from Elvia and David, who are navigators, but also have their own family connections to people. And like I said, I have my sister and Gisela with her son, like that idea of like what is going to happen if something happens to us, like what is going to happen with our loved one it's an emotional thing. And Wendy from Home of Guiding Hands is on with us today, so hopefully she got to hear all of that good feedback. So thanks, Erin. Elvia, would you please introduce yourself, tell us how you came to the program, and then maybe one thing that you have gathered from participating in this program as both a navigator and as a parent that you see being something that is sort of like a gap or a need that needs to be addressed when we're working with these youths that are transitioning to adulthood.
Well, thank you everybody for being here and being interested. Um, I appreciate everyone being here. My name is Elvia Diaz, and I have the honor to be a family transition specialist for this Navigating Change program. How I got here, uh, I was dumped into it through an email. Let me say that I'm originally from Zacatecas, Mexico, with very little resources. Then I went to Washington. I was working with Washington State University in a very, very small town. Also, some resources, but not so many. So then I I came, and you mentioned about the challenges, and I'm going to quote in my, there's Marxisms, and now I have Elvian sayings. So it was the ignorance of my own ignorance. And one of the challenges is that, I came and okay, he's going to get ATP. He's taken care of for the next 2 years. But of course, I had to do more. And then when they said, well, have you signed up for the regional center? With my ignorance, I thought that regional center was like a community center, It's like, I don't want any crafting and all that. Well, maybe I should check it out because, with my Spanish, also, regional, community, same thing. So, so this is kind of the things that sometimes we have to face. So then I got an email from Yvonne saying if I have always think that the best way to learn is by helping others, and the best way to help yourself is by helping others. So when I saw that email, I said, "What the? I will try it out," and it has been game changer for me in many ways because I I am learning as I go, and this plethora of opportunities that can be overwhelming also. So the way that it has been set out for us, and with Heather and Yvonne and of course David being so helpful. My hats off to you because I was dumped into the community because I became a mother, but you guys are here to help just for the love of helping, and that for us is means the world. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Elvia. So, in your perspective as mom and being the navigator, what is what is one takeaway from this program that you think has either been very beneficial or something that maybe has come to light that is, like I said, sort of like a gap where, okay, we need some collaboration, we need some partnerships to sort of address a certain need.
Yes, thank you. Well, the biggest takeaway is that I believe that tenacity is contagious. I mean, Giselle is there, and of course, she's very humble. And when I had the opportunity and honor to help with, you walk into their family, and there's just so much. It's not just the administrative part of managing a life. It's being able and the power of being relatable. Because she was able to say, well, she's going through something very similar. Well, Giselle had, she was just doing what she had to do. Her English is limited, and still she goes with her son, takes him to the class, and stays with him in the class to learn graphic design, takes the notes with her broken English so that he can get the help. And she had no idea about Taylor Day. She had no idea that all those resources were out there. She was just doing what she could with what she had, with such a tenacity. And that's contagious. And we're willing to go the extra, not mile. I think that the extra kilometer is bigger. But with when you see enthusiasm like that, you cannot but say, like, these people really, really deserve to do. They're doing their part. And as I like to say, with the navigating part, we say that we're all in the same. We're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same storm, but each of us are navigating in a different, maybe on a boat, maybe on just a big, big ship. But sometimes some of us are just holding onto a log, and we still have to navigate. So that is one of the biggest takeaways, that, that being vulnerable is powerful, and being humble, that understanding that I need help, and also that I can be of help always. Everybody has always something to give.
Absolutely. Thank you. I really like that metaphor of that we're all not in the same boat, but in the same storm. Um, That's a very powerful imagery. And I really liked that you spoke to the power of being relatable, because I think that that is something, again, so the families and youth that are participating that can relate to each other, but then the navigators and the families, the navigators and the youth also have this ability to connect with each other. And you obviously are touching upon, the um, considerations, cultural considerations, language considerations, which again are so important to address. That again, when someone comes to work, when you come to a group like this, the to be able to identify with someone on so many different levels is, again, sort of what I mentioned before. It like accelerates the ability to connect and support each other. Thanks, Sylvia. And then last but not least, David, um, I feel like you have, you know, the family connection, the navigator, and so David is my partner. Um, we worked very closely together launching our newest cohort out in Imperial County. So you get to see this from all different ways. So tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe two things about your participation in this program that have really stood out to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Heather. Beautiful, I think, all the insights that are kind of coming out from everyone that's been on this panel, everyone that's been in the program has been beautiful. So thank you. Thank you all for sharing. My name is David. I am currently a social work, getting my master's in social work at SDSU. And so that's how I kind of fell into navigating change. Currently, my internship is with San Diego Policy Institute. I also have a sibling who has Down syndrome, and so a lot of the caregiving that I kind of do with her and with my family kind of is around regional center and around a lot of the services that a lot of parents are also doing. So to touch back on the relatability piece, that is one of the major parts that kind of is very real and very present throughout this program. Um, the I guess one of the major things to kind of like bring back uh, in my involvement, I guess, yes, as a youth mentor, as you saw on the slide earlier, I was also a project lead for the Navigating Change launching of the Navigating Change cohort in Imperial County. Um, through the many hats of my participation in this program, I think one of the major parts is the individual support that sometimes that families sometimes need just due to overwhelming informations um and alongside that the ability to just have emotional space to process and gather together as a family when you're receiving that information, I think are the two things that kind of come to mind. Kind of expanding a little bit on that. The peer support groups have been phenomenal spaces for that. Sometimes families come into this program not even having had conversations or begun conversations or very scared of having conversations about the next steps that families are going to be going into, that youth are going to be going into. Not wanting to kind of reconcile with these kind of major transitional shifts. And so it's really incredible to be able to have a safe, welcoming, and understanding space like a peer support group that serves as a reminder for parents, like we are all, again, we're all in the same storm. We all have different boats, but we are all weathering it together. And so we have time to really kind of break down what did we learn in Home of Guiding Hands. A lot of that is so emotionally like it is such an emotional time. It is such a vulnerable time for these families and for these youth to really start reconciling with the fact that things are changing and things are happening, and there are things that we have to think about in the future that we don't really want to think about now. Peer support is a great way to really start breaking that down and say it's better to think about this now together when we're in a space that is safe and welcoming and understanding that allows for vulnerability to happen and not be met with such impact when things happen so suddenly, so unexpectedly. It is better to have a plan. And so that's, I think, one of the great things about one of the great things that kind of come about is that relatability piece, that piece of understanding, that piece of allowance for emotional processing that kind of comes through this program. And that's where I see it. I see it on a personal level with me, my sister, my family unit. I see it with the families that I've been able to help out with, the youth themselves that I was able to work with. It is a really phenomenal dynamic space that allows for individual processing of such grand information.
Bravo. Thank you to all of that. Um, I was starting to take some notes when you were talking, but yeah, it can be scary for sure. Um, but I think that also, and not but, it is scary. And I think that through, what we've all seen through these participation in the peer support group, as well as the one-on-one, meetings with the families and youth and the conversations, like conversations I've had with you, Erin, and that there's because we're learning about so many more services and programs that are available, it's sort of broadening the horizons for the youth. And knowing that, again, whatever path they are going to navigate, that we're all working together um, to create meaningful lives, right? So it's going to look different for every youth. but to know that there are resources and supports and organizations doing work in this space to help bring meaning to whatever path they end up taking. Um, so I want to take just a couple more minutes to wrap up our panel, and after this, we'll be breaking up into small discussion groups so if your wheels are already sort of turning about like, what can my organization bring to the table? Who can we collaborate with to sort of, fill in some of these gaps? What I would love is that for each of our panelists to sort of think about, what is one area or like one piece that you feel is missing that you wish that some organizations, what is it that you're like, oh, I wish I could just find someone that could help me with blank. um so and if you come up with two things, that's okay. Um, so while I'll give you a chance to think about that, and while you're doing that, I just want to speak on behalf of, there was another family and youth that were going to participate on our panel today, but unfortunately they caught the horrible flu that's going around. But I just wanted to, I was the navigator with them. And Claire, who's behind the scenes here today, was the youth navigator. And they are a military family and they live at Camp Pendleton. And so I know for them, one of the sort of black holes that things fall into is that living on a military base it adds an extra layer of barriers in terms of being able to have providers come onto base to their home, or because they're sort of isolated up there in North County, that sometimes a lot of the programs that are available, it takes a long time to get there. So there's like transportation challenges. So I will throw that out there, that if there's any organizations that are like, oh, we can, how can we, be more inclusive of families that are, um, have this military background, which, obviously in San Diego, we do have a large military community. So now, Gisela, I'll come back to you. So if you could please share with us, what is something that you wish you could find out there that would support your son, Adrian? Oh, I see that Gisela is on mute.
Sí, estoy aquí.
Okay. Y Brenda
Oh,
está
lo
aquí.
siento. ¿Me
Okay.
escuchas?
See, so is Brenda here to translate? Maybe I'll have Elvia if not.
Ok,
But so,
gracias.
okay. Okay. No problem. I know we're all, yeah, the bouncing around for interpretation. So my question to Gisela is, what is one thing, one service or one program she wishes she could find that would support her son, Adrian?
Bueno, sí. En cuanto a mi experiencia y a lo que hemos vivido juntos como familia con Adrián, y sobre todo para Adrián, me gustaría que haya un grupo de apoyo para los jóvenes, en este caso en la parte social. Muchos de ellos sufren porque no tienen amistades, no conocen jóvenes de su misma edad que
Mm,
puedan juntarse, hacer un convivio, porque hay para pequeños, sí, he visto, pero para jóvenes de su edad no
mhm,
veo un grupo en el que ellos se puedan juntar, conocerse, hacer actividades. Si hay, no lo sé, no he escuchado ninguno.
mhm. Okay,
Mm.
so Gisela, thank you very much. And there are organizations that do social recreation activities and they have groups, but as we keep hearing over and over and over again, we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what's out there. So hopefully in the small group, you'll be connected with some organizations that do that social rec. I'll also say that I think that a lot of times when we're focusing on transition for youth, that we talk about employment, we talk about education, we talk about living arrangements, but social connection and recreation and having fun and being creative, those are all just that goes to the part of like really that's part of what we need to form our meaningful lives. And so I think that sometimes maybe I'm speaking more from my personal experience, but the focus is on sort of like the nuts and bolts and practical things, and we need to encourage families, and not encourage them because they want it, but like help them find those things. I know for myself, my sister's 50, and we just in the last couple years found out about things like the Miracle League, which is like a baseball league for people with disabilities, and a therapeutic horseback riding opportunity. So again, we've been in this community for 50 years and are just now finding out about it. So thank you for bringing that up, Gisela. Erin, how about you?
That the thing that would be helpful would be more open communication. So, one of the things that I took away when we first met as a group for navigating change was one of the moms said, I really learned the most from other, parents and family members and support people that are going through it. And in our experience, some of that's been similar. You hear about things from other families. So bringing us together as a family has been really helpful. But I think sometimes you don't know what your loved one has access to until you ask for it, and you never know what to ask for because you don't know what's out there. So I do think that there's a lot of probably really great programs we're just not aware of or not asking for that would be of benefit. So I think the communication would be great. On the flip side too, I think just more communication, which I feel like your group does a great job uh, with the general public on what it is to have IDD or to have a loved one with IDD. I don't always know that the population knows, how to communicate and interact and support people with IDD. I feel like we've made a lot of movement that direction, but I think there's still room to grow there too.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you for both of those. Yeah, trying to figure out what's out there and how to ask for it is definitely, it's just like drinking from a fire hose, right? Like there's so much out there, and trying to do the research can be really time consuming. And I know a lot of families, I know like you have a pretty demanding job, and you're, you know, taking care of your other children. And so, yeah, having more of a like centralized location, um, repository of all of these things. And I know there are a couple organizations that are doing work around that. And I think we have some people from Join with us today. And so maybe in their small groups, they can share some of the work that they've done with an app where they're trying to make it easier to find services. Um, and I really appreciate what you said about, to me, what I heard you saying is that there is a need to sort of decrease the stigma around people that have IDD, right? And like offering ways for people that don't have a family connection or don't work directly with this population, um, increasing their knowledge and decreasing their fear and increasing their level of comfort interacting with people that may, not communicate the way most people do, or maybe they move differently, or maybe they use different, um, I have a shirt that I wear when I take my sister out that says, "It's okay, ask me about my sister." So sort of like give people a chance um, to have some interactions where it's okay if they aren't doing everything right. So thank you for bringing that up. Elvia, what do you think? What do you think is one big area where we could make some progress?
I think that I don't want to think. There's just so much. And I think that that's one of the biggest part here. And I think Aaron has touched in a very, very important part, which is the communication. When I mentioned about me not knowing about the regional center, for example, when I spoke to my own service coordinator, that it took me about over a year to be accepted into the regional center. So that was very, very, very overwhelming. But my own service coordinator did not know about this program. So I would very much like that maybe we could be in touch with the own regional center coordinators, with the service coordinators, so that they understand what the program is doing. Because, with that collaboration, we are not, without them, we would not be able to work to do it. So we really need them to understand how we want to support the families. And
I would say, oh,
yeah, okay.
I was just going to say thank you for. I just want to be aware of time so that we have time to go into our groups. But I do want to say that that is something that we learned from our first cohorts that we are trying to strengthen is the real partnership and collaboration between the navigators and the regional center. Sort of like the people on the ground are having more communication and are, just again, like all like really sort of circling around that family unit to provide that support. So yeah, there's only, we can only get better at that. So thank you, Elvia. And then David, really quick, what is one area where you see a need for a gap to be filled?
Yeah, I keeping it brief, I think it is, and I think as through conversations when developing Imperial County, there is new kind of creative ways of streamlining and breaking down information that is very overwhelming. Getting creative in how webinars or information is presented, those are happening, and just continuing to build on those, I think, is really helpful to have many ways that information is provided. Sometimes families prefer more lecture-based, and sometimes families prefer more, here is step by step how it goes. And so just getting really creative on that end, I think, is something that continuing to move towards that direction is going to be all but good.
All but good, indeed. Thank you. So, thank you so much for our panelists. Gracias, Gisela. Thank you, Elvia, Aaron, and David. I hope that our community partners that are here today were able to, take in some of those insights provided by the families and the navigators. And again, sort of your wheels are starting to turn. So now what we are going to do is break up into discussion rooms. So each room will have at least one person from the Social Policy Institute in there with you. We'll do some introductions, and then we have some questions to discuss. And then after about 20-25 minutes, we will break out of our groups, come back together, and share what we learned. So we'll see you in the room shortly.
We know that that was a very short amount of time to connect and discuss and share our responses to all of those questions. But would
Yvonne,
love to.
can I interrupt just for a second? I wanted to just answer Elia because she had the last question, and I just wanted to answer her. Elia,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, digo, Grisela. Gisela? Oh, because the question was, where could she get more support? And she was sharing about having difficulty with this process with Taylor Green or something, the program, whatever she's signing up for. And I just wanted to say maybe that's a place where she could reach out to the navigator to help her connect with that process.
Thanks, Christina.
You're welcome.
So yeah, right now we have a few moments to kind of debrief our group discussions and or add to any answers of the questions that were listed that we might not have gotten to. So if anyone would like to share their experience or some thoughts about that short amount of time we all had together. Would love to hear from you. Anything that stood out? Anything you learned? Any areas of alignment?
I can go ahead and kind of summarize some of the notes that the group that I was in was taking. So some of the things that kind of came around, we were talking, we jumped from question to question and kind of had the flexibility in that end. One of the things that kind of came about was this idea of having more cohesion between cross-referencing, referrals, handoffs, just to kind of allow for more for more kind of partnership building. One of the things that Wendy brought up in reflection of Home of Guiding Hands and the parents kind of moving through that, or the families moving through that, was adding in more in terms of gaps, adding in more context or more information around why these decisions are needed, rather than being met with them for the first time, being able to really explain and see how these decisions are going to be impacting the life moving forward. And so adding a little bit more context to allow for more informed decision making around these really major changes that are taking place. Emphasizing decision making, I believe Joyce brought this up as well from Exceptional Family Resource Center. Um, uh, Emphasizing the decision making and allowing for more time for these major decisions to be brought in preparation, not necessarily being met with everything all at once as families are kind of coming into it, but allowing for life planning preparation leading up to the time to make major decisions. And then just real quick, there was an idea of an annual summit that we'll be able to touch on a little bit later in this. But those were some of the key points that kind of were coming out. So if anyone from the group wants to share or add to it, if not, I will open it up to the rest of the other groups.
I just wanted to say this has really been a good experience today, listening to all of the progress that's being made and the accomplishments of the project. And in terms, I just wanted to expand a little bit as a parent too, is that when I'm talking about supported decision making, it really is in our schools and with our families and with our kids, is giving them those skill sets and us along the way, that starting at age 14 or 15 or 16 or 18 or even 22, it makes it much more difficult to really be fully informed and also keep our family member in the center of making those decisions along with us. So that's kind of my lesson learned. And I think that it is important that we have these conversations as community agencies and partners, and how we can more efficiently work together too. And that's just.
I'm going to pop in real quick as we're talking about decision making for the youth and the family unit. So while my sister is not transitioning to adulthood, she is now transitioning into like almost senior services as someone, she's going to be 51 in a couple weeks. So I think that there's also an opportunity for all of us here when we're thinking about navigating life transitions to even look further down the road in terms of navigating at later stages in life, especially when people with disabilities are living longer, but still aging. That like their aging is often accelerated. Their body systems, whatnot. Um, but so one of the opportunities that I see, even at this stage of transitioning into adulthood, is also making an effort to include siblings in the conversations, because very often as time goes on, siblings are going to become more and more involved in sort of the supported decision making. Maybe they become a conservator if that's what's called for in my situation. So I'm just here to give the sibling role a shout out. Thank you.
And if I may add, I think that I'm very pleased to see so many people involved, and and eager to help. And just to throw out some consideration, sometimes, especially for us, I'm a mother of a child with autism from a family standpoint of view. Sometimes we have to consider that it's not just, I like the last question, which says the youth and their families, because something that we need to consider is that many of us who have a child with autism, according to statistics, at least 43% of us are also dealing with some other kind of neurodiversity, like myself, ADHD, or other things that we have to compensate also. So in that part, being helping the individual, as we call it, but in reality, this is holistic, and I think that that is very, very important when we say that we're helping the family as a whole. With this part of navigating. Just we
Thank
we
you,
want to move on the boat, but
Sylvia.
we only have
Thank
1 hour.
you.
So thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to share quickly from the group that I was with. We concentrated on the first question, and we were talking about the importance of things like supportive decision making, of doing everything that we can to be centered and listen well, and also expanding to marginalized communities. I wonder if any of the members would like to add your comments and maybe elaborate on any of the thoughts that you brought forward. So we talked about within that as well, making sure that we are embedded in 211 community information exchange as a part of supporting information and referral, so that when a youth or family with IDD does call in, they are getting a knowledgeable, targeted response, not a generic response that doesn't apply to their circumstance. So that was one thing that came out as well. Anyone else? Any of our partners, regardless of what group you were in? All right, well, we'll be collecting notes from each of the groups to really make an ongoing resource for everyone so that you'll have an opportunity to benefit from the richness within all of the breakout groups.
Thank you, Lori. So we're going to put a question in the chat. It'll be our final question to you, and we would love to have your responses listed in the chat. And that question is, what is one concrete connection, idea, or a next step you plan to take as a result of today's event? So please take a few moments to think about what your takeaways are from our 2 hours together. And we would love to capture all of this in our follow-up email. Additionally, I would love to introduce you all to James Carter. He is our new Associate Director at the Social Policy Institute at San Diego State University. James is actually going to be overseeing navigating change while I'm on leave, and I'm going to allow James to introduce himself very quickly before we conclude our time today.
Yes, thank you, Yvonne. I'll be brief. I'm very, very, very excited to join the Social Policy Institute. What I've learned, I guess, in the 2 weeks since I've started is just the impact, for a very important population, in the months since August launch that this effort has had. I've been in public service and worked with nonprofits for about 2+ decades now, East Coast, Northwest, now in California, starting my career with child welfare and juvenile justice, working across agencies to improve quality and what they have to offer. As has been mentioned, moving forward, I know many of you have been engaged individually about the advisory group. Moving forward, you'll hear from me about next steps. As that group, we continue the conversation around what's working, where are gaps, and where we can continue to look at opportunities for continued growth. But again, excited to join the effort. Just excited to make this more and more impactful for for our families and for the community.
Thank you, James. So very excited to lift up that advisory group that we'll be launching later this month. Additionally, as this is our first forum convening that we've had for navigating change, we will be hosting a second one later this year um, to conclude our year 2 of our SAE grant. And this is actually going to be an in-person convening hosted at San Diego State University. So we hope to see you there. We'll definitely give you plenty of notice. We know many of you heard about our forum a little last minute, so we appreciate you coming today. But yes, we are going to be doing this again at the end of the year to really showcase the work that we've been able to complete over 2026. And then lastly, we just want to invite you to complete a survey of your time. We want to hear from you about your experiences, things you're walking away with, any areas of improvement or growth for us. We are always willing to hear and receive and think of ways that we can grow as an organization and as a program. So Claire's going to put that link in the chat for you all to complete. It'll also populate when our event ends. And lastly, we just want to thank you so much for spending the past 2 hours with us. We know you are all very busy doing great work in the community. So thank you so much for setting aside your Tuesday morning to be with us, to hear about our program, to hear about some of our contributions to the field, and to connect with others and listen to our families who have been impacted by navigating change. So we look forward to what the rest of this year has in store for not just our program, but for all of your programs and all the different partnership opportunities that we hope will continue to blossom um, from today on. So thank you all. This is the end of our time. If anyone wants to stay back and ask questions, you're more than welcome to. We'll stay on for a little bit, our SPI team. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us.